Hello, my name is Okada, and welcome back to Pixel Perfect Season 2. Today we are beginning episode 13 here at the neighborhood. And this is a very important part because this is where we're going to do our initial building. If you missed last episode, we established the footprint of our new warehouse and hub. And very importantly, we established the template for our rail system. And as you can see, between episodes, I did bring the rail further down. I managed to avoid those trees. It was a little bit of a challenge. And got it all the way down to where I think is going to be roughly the height it's going to need to be at. And the reason I say that is because we don't need to go all the way to the ground. The neighborhood itself is above the ground, so once we build out a building here for all the storage, we'll be able to have rails over here somewhere, a couple stations. We'll make sure we miss those rocks. And, it'll already be off the ground, so that should be fine. Now, as I mentioned, we are going to build storage, and that might seem strange because we're going to send all of it to the warehouse. But that's the kind of way I play this game. It's my style of play. I like to have storage at the origin of wherever I make something. Consider it an emergency supply somewhere. It's also nice to have a little depot that's remote in case I'm in the area and I'm doing something I want to grab them. But it's what it comes down to. I just like to have storage where I build them. So we'll have them go into the storage, then we'll have them overflow to the rails and on their way up to the warehouse. And what we're going to do is we're going to clear all these out. We're going to build a building. I've teased this building for several episodes. It's going to be nice to finally get it built. It's going to hold storage for most of these. We're not going to send all of this, but we are going to send a couple of things that we're not making. You see, right now we're not making any rods or screws because all of them are in use in local manufacturing. And technically, we also are not making any excess iron plate. Now, we need to have all of those go back to the warehouse so that we can have them for our construction purposes. But we don't need to set up a production of iron plate because even though the neighborhood isn't making any excess iron plate, we do have a couple of special machines that have been making iron plate ever since episode 1. And that is, of course, Adam and Eve. Oh, I'm so excited to include these guys in the long-term plans for the season. So in case you missed the kind of story and the lore of this season, Adam and Eve were our very first two machines. Adam was our first smelter, Eve was our first constructor. And literally everything on the map that we have built can trace their lineage back to these two machines. They've made all the initial iron ingots, copper ingots, all the initial iron plate, rods and screws, and wire that we needed to build everything else. So if you see anything constructed on the map, they can draw their lineage back to these two machines. And at some point, we always intend to make a monument out of them, which is why we set them out here like this. But they've been sitting idle all this time, just with their product going here because we haven't used it. But we have now connected them to the main line, and they will live on by producing the iron plate that we'll use in the future to make all of our Mark I belts, our regular walls, and our default foundations. Additionally, there's one more product that we're going to need to send to the new storage facility to get to the warehouse. You may have forgotten that we did this little temporary constructor over here for Sam Orr. More appropriately, reanimated Sam. Now there is another step that we need to do for these, but it requires a manufacturer, and I don't want to do that here. So what we're going to do is we're going to move this little constructor into this little workshop right here. We're just going to extend it, push the walls out a little bit. We're going to make one constructor to make the reanimated Sam. We will curve it around, run it through this wall, and we're going to connect it to this line, which is the output for our reinforced iron plate. Now this does go through some manufacturing before it gets to the storage, but that's okay. We have smart splitters along the way, and it will make its way to the storage. But enough of all that. I want to get to building. So let's cut to the brand and get to work. All right, I think we are about ready to tear most of this down, at least the stuff that we care about, because we don't need to tear down behind the miner, because we're going to build to the left of it. But as you can see, now, look, I don't apologize for this. I've mentioned it many times before that I like automation and I'm lazy. So yes, it'd be quicker to just move the contents manually, but that's what belts are for. So as you can see, most of these have been emptied out at this point. Look at all the belts. I just need them out of the way. That's all I need. All right, so we can see all these that are empty. It's gonna be a real pain to resort all this stuff later, but you know what? That's fine. That's fine. That's, you know, I always knew it was gonna have to happen. So I think that is good. Get rid of a bunch of belts that are clearly empty. Did I? Where did? Okay, maybe I got it. I noticed that the one with the steel pipe is still emptying, but I guess it all got through. All right. You might notice there is Sam or Sam reanimated Sam coming down the line. So that has been established. It's going to go into its own little storage up there. We don't have to move it from here. And I probably should stop these. They're not really in the way. You know what? Let's go ahead and get rid of them. I mean, the storages aren't in the way because they're already over to the side. So we can get rid of all of that. All right, that's going to be all the space we need. We ran out of space for that to be stored. You know what? That's easy to solve. Get this out of our way. And I probably should redirect these lines to a new sink. Drop that bad boy right down there. Because we don't want the, you know, neighborhood to stop running while we're doing this project. So these output lines go down to there. We should have, you know what, we should have two of them because I don't know how much is actually going through them. So let's do that. But help if all my poles around here weren't full. Okay. Great, now we have space. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to model this after a, I don't know if it's a national, I think it's probably a national storage brand. Well, just slightly alter it so I'm not, no copyright infringements. But we have one local to me, or one I've seen a number of times, that I'm going to, you know, that kind of inspired me to do this. Largely because I like the color scheme. It's green and white, and, you know, green's my favorite color. I think green and white's a great combination of colors. What am I doing here? I'm giving myself a drop-off, a dump storage. My inventory is full. The stray bits that were on, you know, belts and whatnot. One of this, one of that. Okay, I think we're fine there. I just want to get this out of the way. Now we are going to build this a little bit away from the road because we want to be able to have a parking lot. And I'm not too concerned about the space for the train stations because we can always push that back, right? The rail is pretty flexible. So let's establish where we can build. We don't want to be interacting with that. So let's go with, let's see here, foundations. The parking lot's going to be out front, so let's go with concrete. Let's do something like this. I don't know if I mentioned it, but we're going to be moving 17 products. So we need to have room for 17 storages. Now we're going to do it too high, but we're also going to have kind of too wide. We need to have a space between each one of the storages. So let's just grab a spot. Actually, we need to have a side road. Grab some asphalt just for the visual. Let's go too wide. Don't worry about the striping, that's going to go away. And then that means we have, let's see here, we said we want 17. We're going to cut that in half because, well, we're not going to cut it in half. We're cutting it in half because we're doing 2 stories, but we're doing every other. So we need, would say 18 wide, but we're going to do a little bit of a U shape. We'll put 2 on either side. That cuts off 4 from the 18, so 14 wide, something like that. Let's see here. Let's do this. Let's say we have one of our side-facing storages right here. This isn't actually going to be road, it's going to be an access area, so we can put it right up to the edge. And we're going to need a corner. So we'll say right there. We go every other. Did that build 2? It did. Can't fool me. Whoop. So that's a full block, and then there we go. Probably shouldn't have used concrete for the interior, just because it's easier to tell them apart. The white concrete is just, it's hard to read. There we go. When we're trying to, establish spacing, something like that is much easier. So we're going 17, so we'd say, to round it off, 18 would mean 9 per floor. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to have 2 more going to the other side. Basically going to take up some space, isn't it? Yeah, maybe we don't. Maybe we can just do half of a space between them. No, we need it. Maybe. Let's think about this. So, here's going to be the design. We're going to have storage. We're going to have... we don't have them unlocked, do we? Let's make sure that it's not under architecture. Okay. Special. Awesome sink. Nope, not awesome sink. Silly. Awesome shop. Under walls, I bet. Architecture. Okay. Um, it was under the gates. All right. So we have these large doors that we're going to want. So we need 5 tickets. Can we split this? I bet we can't. No. That's okay. Add to cart. Let's put our tickets back because we don't have the ability yet to do them from our inventory. All right. Now, as I was saying, holy cow. Okay, I thought we had single size versions of these. Hang on just another second. Okay, I knew I wasn't completely crazy. uh, there was an update to one of the architecture packs that had the doors, or more or less doors I was thinking of. So this is what I need. I don't mind that I unlocked the other stuff. You know, we were going to use those anyway. Because they have the gates for the rail lines. But we need the skinnier doors. So let's take a look and see what we actually have now. But that's more of what I want. I would like to have one that's not as tall. But I'm okay with it if it is that tall. That's the only option we have. I'd like to have a, what was it? Maybe a 4x4. 4x8? We can just have a door just in the middle of nowhere. Oh, that's great. I love cosmetic mods. Yeah, so I guess this is what we've got. And again, I'm okay with that. I would like to have one of these that's only 4 high. But the building was going to be tall enough anyway to support this. So I'm okay with it. All right. So we're going to have these. No, not you. Grab the wall. We're going to have them like this. And then we will have a floor. And then we'll have another gate. Oh, it. Stop. There we go. And this will be our second floor. We can get rid of all this extra pieces that I accidentally built. I don't need that one there either. All right. And it's going to be a storage facility. And on the in-between, so we'll just have walls here. So it looks like storage facilities that you would go and, rent out to store your stuff. That's what this is going to be. And there will be conveyors that can go up, to the second floor, hidden in these side rooms. So they won't actually be part of the storage room. There will be no access to this. It'll just be conveyors that go up and conveyors that split and can go back down under the bottom to go to the train stations. So that's where all the heavy lifting is going to happen, is in these in-between spaces. And, this is like a traditional storage facility where you'd roll up your gate and access your, stuff that you've stored and then leave. And that's what I want this to be. And this way we can stack things on top of each other without them running into each other, because we'll have, a conveyor that comes up and goes over, and then it can go back out. So let's see here. Like we would have storage. Show you. Something like right here. And conveyor, splitter, something like right here. Let's just, we'll just say that we do it there. The product will be coming up from underground. We'll have the default output going to here, and then the overflow will go this way, and we'll probably go back underground, and then it'll go to the train stations. And this will all be hidden. I mean, right now it's not hidden, but don't worry about that. We got space. We can work around that. And it'll be 2 floors, and then there will be some walking space around them to where, people who come in can get their stuff. So let me get to building this. And, I said that it's going to be a long building. It is definitely going to be a long building. I said that maybe we can go to just like 1.5, or, instead of a full one here. But I'm thinking that maybe we need that space. So I'm going to work out the logistics and get this thing built real quick so we can actually start making some progress. All right, are you ready for the big reveal? And ta-da! Yeah, you were expecting a completed building, weren't you? You were probably expecting the thing that I imagine the thumbnail has already ruined. No, I've decided, and this happens from time to time, right? I've decided to show you it before I skin it because it's going to be easier to go over what's going on. There is a lot of logistics in the background. It is a storage facility, but it's not just that simple. And if I'm being honest, it's been about 6 hours since that last clip. I spent a lot of time on this, but that's okay. I know you're thinking, 6 hours, Vilcata, come on. It's just a storage facility. Throw down a couple of smart splitters, overflow, you're done. It's not that simple, believe me. And we're going to try not to take too long going over this, but let's kind of do the quickie version here. You'll remember that we have a main line coming in. The main line has changed a little bit. Of course, you saw we already put the iron plate on it. We now have our reanimated Sam on there. We also are going to now merge the cable line with it. They're going into the merger under here. It's going underneath. And then it's going to come up around, and that's going to go through the customer parking area. All the customers will have their own, I'm not going to say personalized parking space, but their own reserved parking space based on the storage unit that they're renting. So that product will come down, and it's going to go through this chain of smart splitters. I know we do a real good job of keeping these hidden, but they kind of needed to be here for us to get the visual that I wanted to accomplish, which is seeing the people coming in and pulling into their parking spot with whatever it is that they're bringing to their storage unit. So each of these will go to an assigned storage unit. In this case, to the right, we're going with cables. So the boo-boo-boo, going down, and then it's coming back up on behind it. So all of the storage containers are approached from behind. That way, when we have our, come on, door in front of them, we can just walk in and access it. So that's going to make it a lot nicer. And what will happen is it'll split out. Now, there's no overflow in this. There's no overflow control. If we mess something up, everything backs up. But what's going to happen is it's going to go down. It's going to go into another smart splitter. This is where we're going to have our overflow control. The cable will first go to the storage container, and then it will overflow onto a merged belt, which will end up going to the train stations. So this means that the storages will not be buffers, they will purely be storages. They'll fill up first, and then everything else will go to the train station. Now, I'm a big fan of buffers. That's a debate for another time. I know people have strong feelings about it. We'll talk about that just some other time in the future. But this is not about having buffers. So all the overflow will go to the train stations, and you can see we have them all in serial. And we have each one for each side, because we have 2 product per row. Over here, we're going to have our rods and our screws. We don't have an input of those, so there's no belt coming in. Because remember, I mentioned in the last clip that we don't have any rods or screws that are being, produced as overage. We're using up 100% of them in the production lines. But we need to have a few of them coming in so that we can use them for construction purposes. And that's what we've done here in this little courtyard, which is going to be entirely covered up. We have a couple of smelters for iron ingots. Down here we have a couple of tucked in constructors. Those will be producing our screws using the alternate screw recipe. That way we don't have to have rods in between. So it's going to be 100 screws per minute between the 2 of them. And then we will have our rods, 2 of them, producing 30 per minute. So that's plenty. That is so plenty, because they're not going to go into any kind of manufacturing line. Eventually they'll all be full and we don't have to worry about it. But that is all of the general customer side of things. But over here we have 4 storage containers that are for businesses. Well, 3 of them technically are for businesses, and we have 1 that we said we're not going to be shipping, but now we are. And that would be AI limiters. All right, so I changed my mind between last clip and now. And the reason is because I started to do the math when I was dividing up the belts, and I realized that we're producing 400 quick wire per minute, which blows away everything else that we're producing in this area. And that's going to put a huge strain on our capacity for these trains to get back and forth. And we'll talk about how the trains are going to function in a minute. So I made the decision that what we'll do is we will eat up some of it. Now let's go down here. We have an assembler making AI limiters and eating up 100 quick wire per minute. So that's going to shave off 1/4 of the quick wire that we don't have to worry about shipping. It's also going to reduce the amount of copper sheeting. Copper sheeting was never going to be an issue, but it is still fewer product that is being shipped. So we're going to reduce our output by 125 and then increase it by 5. So it's 120 product that is not going to be shipped. Again, with the copper sheeting, it's not going to matter, but it can make a big difference when it comes to the quick wire. Now, we're going to have quick wire going into an awesome sync until we have all of our trains up and running and tested. So this, don't worry about. Eventually, we will have the quick wire shipping out. In fact, I tell you what, this is a good time to talk about our shipping scheme. These are 1 train apiece. Now, we haven't gone over our train scheme, but we do have a unified strategy for trains this season. In short, all of our trains are going to be a maximum of 3 long, at least our standard trains will be. The front car will be for product going to the warehouse, and the cars behind it will be for product leaving the warehouse and going out to manufacturing sites. So all of these are going to gather up into 1 freight container at the front of a train. They're going to go up to the warehouse, and then they're going to get sorted out. Now, there's a couple ways we can do that. We can have 1 station where we dump all of it off, and then we sort it through a bunch of smart splitters, but that means we have to eat up the space for 2 more stations up there, 1 for this train and 1 for this train. And the hub and the warehouse are already going to be very congested with train stations. I don't want to do that. So what's going to happen is that this train is going to go to every one of these stations. And I've had to group them intelligently. It's part of why it has taken so long. But without getting into further plans, we are going to have special trains, our construction trains. They're going to have specific products on them. They're going to be sitting at the warehouse waiting for us to call them to project sites when we're doing builds. One of those trains is going to have just belting material on it. So this train here is going to have all the belting material that we're supplying from this location. the reinforced iron plate, the encased beams, and the iron plate. That way, this train won't have to bounce around so much when it's dropping everything off. If it can make the loop fast enough, then it will also carry the quick wire. Remember, quick wire stacks in 500, so at 300 per minute, we might get away with it. But that is the idea behind all of this. When I mentioned that this is going to be business storage, what I'm talking about is instead of them having a parking spot like the other customers do, they have a business unloading area. So you can see it's a little different style. And of course, that means that we're going to bring in products from businesses. We have Willie's wiring over there in the black and white building, and we have Peter's piping in the copper and white building. Now, I haven't decided whether or not they're brothers. Maybe I did in an earlier episode. If you watched an early episode and remember what I said about it, remind me in the comments. But point is that they might have, a bunch of storage that they've had at the business and they need to put it away somewhere. They're planning for a big sale or something like that. So, businesses are more likely to bring in more product for storage all at once than a customer in a car. So they have this big industrial unloading area that they can use for all of this. And that's where all this is going to pass through. But I think that's going to be all for this. I want to get to building the rest of the building. It's mainly just skinning it. And the other big thing I need to do is I need to figure out where exactly our train stations are going to be. There are some logistical problems with how the rail's going to come down. I've had to push this back already. This is the tightest turn we can make and not run into this building. But keep in mind, when we do a 90-degree turn with rail, that is a 3x3 turn in foundations. So if we want to do a U-turn, it's a 6x6. So we need a lot of room to get that rail turned around to go into the stations and then to have it turn back around and go back up. So we can't just willy-nilly toss down our station and have it fit. But I will figure that out. Let me get to it, and I'll bring you back when all this stuff is built. All right, ready for the big reveal? No, I know. Once bitten, twice shy. I made it time. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Ta-da! Oh, yeah, there's no way you haven't seen this already. This has to be in a thumbnail. I mean, look how beautiful this thing is. Oh, I love it. I love it. It's so good. I wish I could hide it and, not have it in a thumbnail, but no one will click if I don't put it out there. Oh, yeah, it's beautiful. And, once we had already got the logistics out of the way, it didn't take nearly as long to just put the building together. But that being said, there is still a lot of work that has gone into this, and just a lot of care and detail. And I've gone through and I've just unlocked all the decals at this point. But this is just so great. Look, this feels like a real storage facility. Look up, look, Well, have you got your storage bin? There you go. And I've transferred pretty much everything that we already had in storage into here. And I've done it by feeding it through the lines. So it's fairly well tested, but again, those were going from the previous storages down the lines. They weren't coming in from, the actual production lines. So that'll be the final test to make sure that we can keep up with the production lines. But no, I think it's gonna be fine. I still need to clean up some things, but I need to get this stuff out of the way, and then I'll probably put some grass, along this way just to kind of cover this up and hide everything. And I got to figure out what I'm going to do to, obscure the mines. But beyond that, I think we're so good. Let's just plug stuff in. Let's get everything connected, and hopefully nothing will surprise us. All right, let's get that to here. Straight mode, and you need to go. Come on, give me a belt. Thank you. It's right there. Perfect. Oh, actually, there's one more thing we need to attach. Because, as I mentioned earlier, I changed the ratio of how the quick wire is coming down the belt so that we would have a fewer coming down the street, so it looks a lot nicer. The big belt is down here and obscured. So we need to connect that as well. All right, that should be fully functional. Ignore the stuff coming through the bottom. That's, you're not supposed to see that. It's gonna be hidden below everything. The parking lot came out beautifully. I like the numbers. I like all the parking spots. Everything disappears just right. I mean, this is just great. And again, most things are mostly full at this point. If we were to go through and randomly check them. Yeah, see, we're already full in these. Because remember, we had a full container of them sitting over there all along anyway. So, yeah, all this stuff should be ready to overflow pretty soon to the train stations, which, of course, we have train stations. There they are. And, in fact, let's approach it properly. Over here. So off the highway, which, by the way, Willie's Wiring now has a banner, or a billboard, and so does Peter's Plumbing. Yeah, it was about time we finally did that. Okay, so we now have a road coming off of here, and I know there are trees and bits and places. It's always the last pass, right? Once we're sure that we want to have a feature in a given place, then we come back and we tear down all the foliage. We don't want to do it ahead of time, just in case we decide to move anything. But we have a nice road. It's going along. This obviously need to be moved. And you can see we have a curving road. So this is not a use of the mod, the curving mod, right? So the foundations, we can do curve, right? And so we can do curves like that, but those curves are not perfect, like 90-degree curves. They don't fit with the grid. So they're a little bit problematic, but this is a perfect 90-degree curve. And this is something I teased, I think, in maybe the last episode. By the way, parking lot. Look, a little walkway for people so they can come up to the train station. Maybe they're going to take the train somewhere. But yeah, we got a couple train stations. Looking good, looking good. But the curves, I'm going to show you another one right here. Get up on the roof. Look at that. So I'm not going to go over this in detail at the moment. Just we are tight on time. But there was a viewer when we were doing the live stream for the lighthouse over there. And the lighthouse is round but not round. And they mentioned that there was a trick that I had never heard about where you can do a curve with a railroad and basically delete the foundations underneath it, attach pillars to the bottom of it, and then you can attach foundations to those pillars. So I took the time between episodes and made some templates by doing this in our creative world. And I love them. They're so good. Look at this. This is so good. Yeah, and so we've got them as blueprints. See, we have a whole set of them. Look at there, look at there, look at that. I'm just gonna lock one in place here. I can just show you. I'm not gonna actually build it. Well, you see that? That is a perfect turn, and we have all of our, rails set up so we can have a 4x4 with a 5x5 or a 4x4 with a 3x3. And I can always delete part of it if I only need to have one rail. It's just working out fantastic. It looks so good. But here is the final solution for our train stations. I wasn't sure where I was going to place them at the end of the last clip. I mean, I knew I was going to place them back here, but I wanted to run them along this way. And I realized we could do a little loopy-loop, just like this, have it go underneath the ramps, plenty of clearance, and then just pop it out back. And look at that, it works out just great. And this solves, I'm not gonna say a problem, but a little bit of a concern I had before, which was that if I did the rail station going that way, it was gonna basically be, rail station, then freight platform, rail station, freight platform. And that was just gonna be it. This way, we actually have enough room to run them side by side, so they don't have to worry about getting congested. And if we ever needed to expand here to send more cars, we have enough room for 2 more cars. And as I mentioned, our trains are going to follow a standardized template of having up to 3 cars on them. So this is going to be the typical size of all of our train stations. But here we are. It's all good. You can see, oh, look, overflow. Perfect. So that's going to go into the stations. Of course, we don't have anywhere to send them yet. The warehouse is not ready, so They will overflow into a sink for now, but that's just a temporary thing. Okay, it is powered up. Excellent. But let's real quick, like, I know we are short on time. Give me railway, thank you. These are powered. So we can take a train. You can see I have unlocked the rail signals and set up a bunch of them. It was just going to be necessary. There was no way we were going to get away with not having them before we started running our first train. So it's a decision I went ahead and made. So if we come up here, you see we have that little corner piece there. I just blew right past it, didn't talk about it. That was how we avoided some trees. And of course, there's a lot of trees here that's going to get cut down, but just a short jaunt later, and here we are at the facility for our steel beams. And you can see, actually I'm running the wrong way. I have also built a parking lot, finally, for this location. You know, now that I knew where the rails were going, I knew where I could, you know, run the roads. So you can see the roads are all the way up here. That goes all the way down to the neighborhood. So all things are now connected. So that makes me happy. We completed another goal. And it's a nice looking little parking lot. And along with that, I have run all of the outputs to the station. So the station is ready to go once we have somewhere for it to go. Easy peasy. And look, so we're getting a lot of use out of these little curves. It's just absolutely perfect. It's a lot less messy than when you do, you know, straight blocks and then curve over them. It looks nicer. And as you can see here, I've actually managed to do curves in 2 directions. And it just came out very nice. I'm very happy with it. So yes, there's a lot of trees that are going to need to be tore down. We'll get to it. But that's not something I worry about right now. But we're going to run up to the top real quick. Like, I want to show you real quick, like, kind of how those curves are used, and then I think we're going to wrap it for today because, you know, it's been quite a run. We get a lot done, and you know, what we need to do next is just going to take a lot of time. So we don't have time for it in this episode. All right, here we are at the top of the world. If we go off the edge of that, then we will just run right off the edge. That's a thing now. It wasn't that in early access. To stop at the end of it. So here's an example of not having the new turns, right? This is the way we would have done it before. I mean, we would have gotten rid of a couple of blocks there, but this is, you know, it's just not as nice. So this is going to be pretty easy for us to swap out. Let's get rid of this, get rid of that. We're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Perfect. So, almost fell off. 2, 3, 4, and so it's a 5 by 5, and then we need 1 for the straight line, which probably did not make any sense whatsoever, but just trust me on it. All right, and that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, very good. So we're going to, that's our 5 by 5 turns. We're going to get rid of 1 on each side. This is going to be the connection point. Do not want to fall to our death. Go to our blueprints. You know what I should do? I should get rid of these just so that we can see what we're doing. Oh, I can't get rid of it because there is a locomotive on it. There we go. Blueprints. Let's see here. Curved templates. Grip metal 5 by 5. So we'll just get it on anything. We'll turn it so it's the right orientation. Should move it out a little bit so we can actually see what orientation it is. Okay, that's right. So I'm just going to lock it in, and I'm just going to move it, move it, move it, move it, move it, move it. Come on, come on. Here you go. Here you go. Bring it down. Back. We overcompensate a little bit. Back A little more and down and perfect. Look at that. It fits right in like a glove. I don't want to walk on it because it's not actually there. Now remember, the interface did not let me keep jetpacking. Remember, these do not actually connect, so we need to delete and replace the rails. Also, there's a little bit of a shortcoming here, which is you'll see that there is a missing piece on the 5x5, and that's because in order for it to be a true turn, there needs to be a flat piece on each side, so I actually have to go 6x6, and the largest blueprint designer is 6x6. So if you do the first curve right off of this, right, if we went straight, we could go 6 and then 6. But as soon as we curve the first one, you see how that's just a little bit outside? Well, that would put it outside of the blueprint designer and makes it an invalid piece. So it's a small price to pay. All I have to do is just build it off of the inner one and replace the tracks. We'll go to where it is straight. Should be right there. Right there. Yes, excellent, perfect, excellent, haha. And it makes things so much simpler and so much cleaner. I am loving this. I'm loving having these nice, clean turns. So we'll do something with the road later. I don't, really know. I do want to have a road coming up here, so that's the thing. And next episode, we'll start working on the warehouse, because now we actually have product that we can send up here. We can start strategizing on where we're going to put the different stations, what order they're going to be in, how far away are they going to be from where the warehouse is, where we're going to need to run all of the conveyors. There's just a ton of logistics that need to go on. And I'm looking forward to finally starting to get some meat on the bones of this warehouse and hub, so we can begin to get it constructed and actually try to get out in the world a little bit and start doing more production lines. So thank you so very much for coming out. I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to leave a like on the way out. If you haven't subscribed, normally I don't mention this, but we do a fair amount of streaming, and lately we've been doing community cooperative games. So if that's your thing, you might not be seeing them come up in your feed if you only see this because you're a Satisfactory fan. And of course, to support that, we have a community Discord. But again, thank you so very much for coming out. Thank you for coming back, and I hope to see you in the next episode when we finally get to dig into this project. If you enjoyed this, you may want to check out one of these other videos, and thank you very much for your time.